The invasion begins. How the islands became Europe's battlefield. The year is 1492. Under the blazing Caribbean sun, white sails slice the horizon. Phantoms on a mirror of blue. The sea whispers warnings, but none are heard. On shore, the Taino people pause. Children stop mid-play. Elders gaze skyward. Farmers still have their hands. The sound of waves collides with the crack of oars. Strange wooden beasts, their bellies full of men, inch closer with each breath of wind. They don't know it yet, but the world they have known for thousands of years is about to change. Forever, what they see is foreign. What they feel is unease. What they face is the beginning of an age. Before it was carved into colonies, before it became a chessboard for European empires, before its people were forced into chains and its land divided by lines never drawn by islanders, the West Indies was a vibrant, interconnected world. From Cuba to St. Lucia, from Jamaica to Dominica, the islands pulsed with life. Civilizations flourished. The Taino, the Kalinago, the Lucayan, the Siboney, each had complex societies, languages, trade systems, and spiritual beliefs rooted in nature and ancestry. There were sacred caves and ceremonial ball courts, ritual dances under starlit skies, agricultural systems that balance harvest with sustainability. Trade networks spanned islands long before European ships crossed the Atlantic. And then came the ships, the so-called Age of Discovery. But let's call it what it truly was, the Age of Invasion. This is the story of how paradise became a battlefield, of how resistance took root before the conquest fully landed, of how the islands refused to surrender quietly. Columbus did not discover empty lands. He intruded upon thriving worlds. When he arrived in the Bahamas and later Hispaniola, he found the Taino, open-hearted, community-centered, and skilled in agriculture, navigation, and art. They welcomed the strangers with food, gifts, and hospitality. But Columbus saw none of their richness. He saw only utility. He noted their gold jewelry, their kindness, and their vulnerability. To him, they were a means to an end. He misnamed them Indians, a misstep born of error and arrogance. To the Spanish crown, they were not sovereign peoples. They were assets, tools, souls to convert, labor to exploit, Columbus wrote. They are very gentle and without knowledge of what is evil, nor do they murder or steal. They would make good servants. His arrival marked the first in a long line of calculated moves to claim, convert, conquer. Within a few short years, the generosity of the Taino was met with betrayal. Their villages were raided, their leaders were humiliated, and their trust irreparably broken. The Spanish Empire was not driven by mere curiosity. It hungered for wealth, gold, glory, God, gold to fill royal coffers, glory for explorers and nobles, God for the church, souls to save, lands to purify. And the Caribbean? It was the gateway, a strategic archipelago from which to expand to the Americas. A site rich in natural resources, an ideal launching point for transatlantic domination. Soon, the news of Columbus's findings reached Europe, and the feeding frenzy began. England, France, and the Netherlands all began sending ships. Each came not as guests, but as invaders, each with dreams of plantations, ports, and plunder. Their motivations were layered, yet brutally simple: dominance, profit, supremacy. The Caribbean would become the proving ground for colonial ambition. By the early 1500s, every major European power saw the West Indies not as inhabited land, but as contested property. But the people who already lived there, they saw it differently. They saw their lands, their ancestors, their futures at stake. The Taino were not passive. They did not bow their heads in silence. From the very beginning, they resisted. They fought not just with weapons, but with strategy. They withheld food, burned crops, refused conversion. Some killed livestock to starve the settlers. Women hid their children. Shamans prayed to ancestral spirits. Young warriors watched the forests and shorelines, ready to act. In 1495, a Taino chieftain named Caonabo became a symbol of that resistance. He led an attack on the Spanish fort of La Navidad, burning it to the ground. The Spanish retaliated with brutality. They captured Caonabo through deception, chained him, and attempted to ship him to Spain. He died en route, a prisoner of empire, a martyr of resistance, but he lit a flame, one that would pass to the Kalinago, to the Maroons, to the revolutionaries who came centuries later. His name would be remembered by freedom fighters. His defiance echoed across the islands. To control the islands, Spain created systems of domination. The encomienda system gave colonists legal claim over indigenous labor. In return, they were to offer spiritual protection. In truth, it was slavery in religious disguise. The requerimiento was worse. A document, written in Spanish, read aloud to people who did not understand it, declared that if the indigenous did not accept Spanish rule and Christian faith, they would be enslaved or killed. Consent through confusion. Submission under threat. When paperwork failed, muskets spoke. Entire communities were wiped out. Women and children were enslaved. Lands seized. Within a generation, whole cultures teetered on extinction, but not on erasure. Even amid genocide, stories survived. Songs passed secretly through families, carvings etched into stone. Herbal knowledge was kept alive by grandmothers. The resistance continued not just in battle, but in memory. The Taino did not vanish. They adapted, survived, merged. Some fled to the mountains. Others joined with runaway African slaves to form Maroon communities, free settlements that defied European control. In forests and highlands, Maroons built lives. They sang songs of both pain and power. Their drums beat rhythms of endurance. The Kalinago, warriors of the Lesser Antilles, resisted fiercely. Their naval strikes and ambush tactics frustrated colonists for decades. They learned the ways of the enemy, captured ships, defended their homes, and the memory of leaders like Caonabo lived on in song, in story, in the spirit of rebellion. From the ashes of invasion, a new kind of resistance was born, a hybrid of African, indigenous, and later even Creole defiance. In markets, people whispered names forbidden by colonial rule. In churches, they disguised old gods beneath saints. Culture morphed, but never disappeared. So what began in 1492 was not the start of history. It was the collision of worlds, one seeking domination, the other demanding survival. The West Indies became the testing ground for the empire, but it also became a school of resistance. Every island had its warriors, every generation its rebels. This was only the beginning, because if the Europeans came to conquer, they would find these islands far harder to hold than they ever imagined. If this story moved you, if the echoes of resistance still ring in your bones, then join us as we uncover more untold truths of the past. Like this episode, hit that like button to support historical storytelling that challenges the narrative. Want more? Subscribe to Chronicles of Eras and tap the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of resistance, resilience, and revelation. Have thoughts or ancestors with a story to share? Drop a comment below. History lives in all of us. This isn't just history, it's the story of us.